I'm Matt, and this is Procrastination Garage. Okay, folks, it's that time of the video where I beg you to hit the like button and to subscribe and to please tell all your friends. Thanks. It's Monday morning. Can you guys see through the windshield? It's just as dirty on the inside as it is on the outside, so I'm not sure if it's reflecting off or not. Anyway, headed over to rental number 2 where we replaced the dishwasher and had the irrigation leak. An update, the dishwasher seems to be working fine. They're happy with that. I have not found the source of the irrigation leak. I dug some holes on Friday, I think it was, and turned off a valve that I thought was the culprit, and it's still the holes I dug are filling up with water apparently. So we're going over there now to drain those holes, maybe turn off another valve, do some more digging. My concern is the main irrigation line is down about 3 feet. I can't imagine that's the one that's leaking, but the irrigation valve I turned off should have cured the leak if it was where I thought it was. I'm going to try turning off the valve from the front yard sprinklers, thinking maybe there's a line that runs across the driveway and goes around towards the backyard, but I don't know. I do know, and I may have mentioned before, there is a line over in that general direction that has been, the valve has been missing for years. I don't know anything about it. And I'm still thinking that's probably the line that's the problem, but until I find it, I won't know. There is one hole I dug. Yep, it's full of water. And there's the other one I dug. It's even more full of water. Not good. Well, let's drain them and dig a little bit. Maybe first I will close this valve. This is a front yard valve that shouldn't have any effect on the backyard, but may. But let me go ahead and close it. Took me a minute to find the actual valve. Can't see down in there. I'm just feeling around with the end of that pole. Anyway, this one is now off. I'm going to go double check the one in back and make sure that I turned it off. I'm 99% sure. Yes, it was in fact off. I've drained the water out of both holes. So water is seeping back in, but I'm not sure. I mean, even if I shut that valve off, water is going to seep if it's coming from there. If we get a lot of water still, then it's obviously something else. I'm going to go ahead and grab my shovel, and I'm going to set a tarp over there. See, I'd stacked some dirt up there, not really thinking how far I was going to have to dig. So I'm going to set a tarp over there, put all the dirt on that. Probably move this dirt over there. I got a pile here. This hole here probably could be filled back in. I do need to fix that line right there. I cut that line thinking that might have been the one that was leaking, thinking if I cut it, I could cap that end of it there, temporarily anyway. But I quickly discovered that wasn't the line that was leaking, so I'll need to repair that, but that's easy. I just would like to find where we're leaking from. Well, I hate to admit defeat, but I've called a plumber. First place I called, they only dig down 4 feet. Ackland Pump and Irrigation. I was kind of surprised, and even then they got to have a backhoe to do it, and that's how they have to get back here. So that's really not the best answer, although I can widen it up. If I had to cut that open, I could, but I don't know. Anyway, so there's my valve shutter offer pole, and you can see that I've got it down in here, but if you look and see, I can put it down that far through soft dirt. So I'm not saying the water line is down that far. I'm just saying it goes down that far. So at the end of the day, I think maybe it's time to get the professionals out here. So they're coming out tomorrow morning. At least I'm on their schedule for tomorrow morning. So I guess we'll relax the rest of the afternoon. I don't know, hard to relax because my concern isn't the cost of the bill. My concern is finding somebody that will actually do the work. So we'll see. It's Burke Plumbing and Heating that's coming out. The gal on the phone seemed to think that they did this kind of work, so we'll find out. All right, moving on to something else. It's Tuesday morning, around 9 a.m. Been over at the rental since about 7:15, waiting on the plumber who was supposed to show up at 7:30, who got there closer to 8. But that's okay, I'm not holding that against him. Anyway, talked with the guy, explained the situation, kind of came to agreement on what's going on, what to do. Basically, the line that runs underneath the tree that is leaking, we're going to abandon that and relocate the valve in a different area and the line in a different area. So just as I left, he was getting ready to start digging, trying to find the line in a different location. And then once they find the line, then they got to figure out how to shut the water off, and I'm not sure how that happened just yet. And then they're going to go ahead and replace the line all the way over to my irrigation box, which I think is a pretty good thing, although I'm sure it's going to cost me through the nose. But sometimes you just got to let the pros do it. So that's where we're at. When I have something better to update, go back over there and maybe take some video or something. So let's move on to something else, because I've got something else that needs to be done. Still Tuesday, about 10 a.m. Got the mower in the shop. That can't be a good thing. Now it's running just fine. The problem is when I was using it yesterday and trying to go backwards, it's got a hydrostatic transmission and it's a heel shifter thing to make it go backwards. I had it all the way to the floor and it was just creeping, sometimes not moving at all. And usually that's an indicator that the belt is kind of stretched out and ready for replacement. But I also noticed a bit of a funny rocking motion going from forward to reverse. This is not my first Craftsman mower, and the first one I had, or have, because I'm still stealing parts off of it, it suffered from a broken frame, and I think maybe that's what's going on here. I think the frame might be broken. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull the deck out, and we're going to inspect the deck, make sure everything's good on it, and then we're going to take a close look at the frame and see if we need to make a repair on it. So let me get the deck out and I'll show you what I find. I hate it when I'm right. Well, sometimes I like being right. All right, so you can't really see, but right back in there, the frame is cracked. It's cracked across the bottom, up the side, clear to the top, and even across the top just a little bit. And it feels like when I reach over on the other side, it feels like the same over there. So we need to patch that. I'm thinking welding it up, maybe adding in some extra support. But in order to get to it, that piece there needs to come off. So I've got 2 bolts up there. Those just bolt to the frame on both sides. I've got 2 bolts there that bolt to the transaxle. And I think all this piece is a brace for the transaxle. And then there'll be 2 bolts like this on the other side. And then you've got this rod here. That is the shift or the forward reverse rod. So I can take that little pin or that little cotter pin out and drop it down, and that should let this piece release. So let me try it and I'll show you what I get. I have those 2 bolts removed, and I was starting to remove both of these when I realized that just maybe this piece right here is helping to support the break in the frame there. And if I pull both those out, it might just collapse. So I've got a hydraulic jack, bottle jack, supporting the frame, and I'll put another one on the other side, and that'll allow me to remove those bolts and that piece without worrying about it collapsing. I'm going to need those jacks under here anyway because I'm going to need to jack it up to get the frame in alignment for welding or whatever I do to repair it. A project update: I removed the rear wheel for better access, and I took the cotter pin out. I've got this rod loose. Bolts are all loose on this side and from the differential. I've got hydraulic jack jacked up and one over on the other side. Put my big floor jack at the back for support as well. So now I'm going to go around the other side and remove those last 2 bolts, which will allow this to drop down. You can see I've got a bit of a mismatch in the frame height there. So I'm guessing that when I jack up the hydraulic jack, I can bring that into better alignment. So let me get that piece completely out of there. I'm going to call this the transaxle support cross member, and it is removed. So here's what we've got. So I took the jack from the other side and brought it over here. I'm just going to do one side at a time. I decided that jack there was too far back, and I couldn't easily move it forward because of the way the front suspension is on these things, it would tip. So anyway, I moved this jack over, got it sitting right there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to jack it up and try and get this frame straightened up, matched up. Originally I thought about welding it to repair it, but the more I look at it and all the other stuff going on, I decided against it. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a support piece that uses these 4 holes right here and bolts in from the back side. And that'll cinch everything up. And part of the reason is because I've got my hydraulic jack out here, I don't want to get welding slag on it, on the cylinder. That's a problem. The gas tank is right there, heaven forbid if something happened. And on the other side, the fuel line runs right there. So, and then the other thing with doing is welding a crack like that is that there's no guarantee it's not going to crack again unless you do it just right. You're supposed to drill out the end of the crack. And anyway, I just think that bolting it all back together will be simpler in the long run. It actually will take a little longer, but I think it'll be simpler in the long run. And the other mower I had, at the time I didn't have a welder, so when I repaired that frame, that's what I did is I patched it with a piece of metal. So anyway, if I patch it on the inside, I'm going to drill these holes out larger, And that way the piece of metal will be on the inside, and then the bracket will still fit just fine, this bracket on the outside. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jack it up, and then we're going to drill these holes out. What happened is when these holes get punched in there, you can actually feel on the back side there's a raised area, and ideally I think I want to drill it to where the holes are oversized and get rid of that raised area in the back, and that way whatever piece of metal I put back there will fit flush. So I'm going to use at least these holes here, and then I might use like this hole here, and then drill another one up here to give me a little more support. Am I looking at the frame there? I guess so, close enough. So that's where we're at right now, but let me jack it up and I'll show you when I get it in the best position I can. Those 5 holes are all drilled out to 1/2 inch, and I wasn't really planning on going that big, but I had to go that big in order to get the back side to go away. And even then it didn't completely go away, and I had to take this real small file and go in from the front and angle it and grind off the sections in the back. It wasn't all the way around each hole, but it was part way around each hole. And using the small file like that allowed me to come in at an angle so I didn't really wallow out the 1/2 inch hole in the front, which was my goal. So right now I'm getting ready to head down to Tractor Supply, see about finding some metal that is about this wide on the inside and at least that long. Not sure the thickness. This frame is really thin. I'm going to go a little thicker than that, I think. I looked through my scrap metal. I didn't really find anything that was making me warm and fuzzy. So we'll go see what Tractor Supply has. If I can't find anything there at the local hardware store, maybe I'll come back and look around some more. But let's see what we can do. Also, I need to get 6 1/2 inch bolts for this side with nuts and washers, and then 6 for the other side. So again, I'll be drilling one more hole out here, but didn't need to do that yet because we were just trying to clean up the back side of those holes there. So let's head to Tractor Supply. Made it to Tractor Supply. So we're spreading the love. Got the nuts and bolts at Tractor Supply, but they didn't have the steel I needed. True Value here had the steel, but oh my God, the price. But I guess if you buy your steel at a hardware store, that's what you get. Back home with our parts. All right, the nuts and bolts, those are 1/2 inch bolts. And they're about 1 1/4 inches long, I think, plenty long. And then the piece of steel, 1/8 inch thick, 3 inches wide, and I don't know, 2.5 feet long, something like that. We'll cut that down. So now we need to measure and see exactly how big of a piece of steel we need to cut out of that. Unfortunately, 3 inches is wider than I can use, so that means I've got to rip it down as well as cut it to length. So let's get started. We're making progress. There's one piece cut down to about 2 3/4 inches wide, 5 inches long. Gonna see if it fits up behind there, and then I'm gonna have to notch it. The reason for the notching is this here on the back side. So the piece is gonna have to come down and over. Well, probably not even that far. Sorry about the focus there. So what do you think? We've got it all cut. I've put it up there. I've marked the holes where they need to be. Going to drill all those out to a 1/2 inch, and then I'll have one more hole to drill. So let's get the drill press set up to drill these. A few minutes at the drill press, and this is what we've got. So in theory, that ought to go right up there and bolt in. Now the holes may not line up perfectly. I may have to adjust them a little bit with the file or just run the drill bit through. We'll see. Just call me Captain Overkill. Okay, remember the reason those were drilled out to 1/2 inch was to get rid of the part on the back side that was protruding. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gone anywhere near that big, but that's okay. So I still have one more hole to drill, like right here, to put one more bolt. And then realize these two need to come back out because this piece here has to be sandwiched between them, which means I have to drill those holes out to 1/2 inch as well. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get that hole drilled. And we're just going to start with a small bit and just keep working our way up until we get to 1/2 inch. There, got the last hole drilled and bolt in. Now it's time to move over to the other side and repeat. Making good progress, but just about ready to stop for the evening. It's coming up on 5 o'clock. So that patch panel is in. Now what we need to do is install this piece here, and I've already drilled those holes out to 1/2 inch, both ends. So I need to get that back up in place. I need to do it from the other side because there's that rod over there. You can see the end of it that needs to go through that hole right there. The transmission support bracket is back in place. All the holes lined up, no problem. Piece of cake. Got the rod back on there. Cotter pin reinserted. And yes, I reused the old cotter pin. Never mind, I've got a million cotter pins in an assortment I bought at Harbor Freight. I went ahead and reused the old one. Hey, it's in good shape. So that's all we're going to do tonight. I'm thinking I might have a drive belt for this thing. I'm going to check in the morning, and if I do, then I'll replace the drive belt for the transmission, because it certainly could be done. So that's it. See you on Wednesday. It's Wednesday morning around 9 a.m. and Bear's down here helping me. We're back to work on the mower. See, the mower deck is still out. Mower's still here, up on a couple of hydraulic jacks, bottle jacks. So I looked through my part stash. I have a drive belt for a 54-inch Craftsman, or so it says. This might have been from my old 54-inch Craftsman, which is my parts mower. It's a different year than this one, but most of the parts have been interchangeable, so we're going to assume that's the right belt. I hope so, because the belt is not an easy thing to change, although it is easier to change on the Craftsman than it was on the Troy belt, as I recall. Anyway, let's take a look. Here at the front, you can see the drive belt and pulley way up in there. So you got to get to it. To do that, you have to remove the electric clutch assembly that is for the mower deck, for the deck belt. But it comes out pretty easily. And then the belt works its way to the back, comes around a couple of pulleys there. And then, I don't know, at the back, can we see it? Where is it up in there? I don't know. I don't have a good view of it. Trust me, it's up in there. Yeah, there's part of the belt there. Anyway, it goes around the pulley back there. And I think, and it's got kind of a cooling fan at the top of it. I think you can, those are a couple blades you can see right up there. Anyway, you got to get it around that. But as I recall, first let's get the clutch off the front. And then these pulleys back here, one of them is like a tension pulley on a spring. And I think once you pull it, you can get enough tension to loosen everything up. I don't know. I'm just going to go to work on it. All right, so where are we? I've got the belt off the back pulley, got it up and over the fan. And in order to do that, I had to get it off the front pulley and get it down over part of the spindle to give me a little more slack. I thought I had to take that clutch off, but now I don't think I do. I did have to take a bracket off, that little bracket right there, and I'll show you where it goes when I put it back together. And I disconnected the electric clutch, which I'm not sure I need to do that. I think I did. So anyway, I think I'm about ready to pull this belt out through the front. I think I'm going to put the wheels back on to give me, so I can get these jacks out of here, so I can get up underneath here better for rerouting it and make sure it's not catching on anything. Before I do, I did want to show you, there's the inside of a patch, frame patch that I did yesterday. Is that in focus? With the 6 bolts over there. So that's what's holding this whole thing together. Anyway, let me see if I can get the belt out. I'm going to get the wheels back on first. Tires are back on. The hydraulic bottle jacks are out of the way. Gives me more room, and plus it's safer. So now let me work on getting that belt out. My concern is an area I can't see up in there. I think I can now that the jacks are out of the way. I just want to make sure the belt's not doing something funny up through there, so when I reroute it, you know, because if the belt is rubbing against something or doesn't get run around a pulley the correct way, it either won't work or it'll wear the belt out real quick. Up underneath the mower here, what I discovered was the belt goes around the steering shaft, so the steering shaft has to be moved out of the way. So there are 2 bolts, one there, coming in from the top. I've removed them, so now this will just push up out of the way, and I'll be able to get the belt out and then get the new belt in. So I can't really hold the camera and do that, so I'll just get back to you. There's the old belt out on the left. There's the new belt on the right. Now I'm not sure if you guys can tell. Yeah, you can tell. Look at the thickness difference between the old and new. and this one is well worn, so it was time to replace it. So let me get the new one in. You know what they say about best laid plans. So I had a belt that was marked for 54-inch Craftsman, and it was too long, about 10 inches too long. So I started looking around online to see what I needed. Couldn't decide if I needed an 81-inch or an 80-inch. And so I came to Tractor Supply. I ended up with the 81-inch, and you know why? I brought my old belt down here. They have a belt measuring tool in there. That was awesome. I wish I'd taken my phone in to video it. Anyway, let's go home and put this in. So how did I get in my little belt predicament? You know, when the two belts were laying down there on the floor, they looked to be a similar size, and I didn't pick them up and compare them closely, and I should have. So what happened is I got the new belt all up in there, routed correctly around the steering shaft, the steering column and everything, and I'm all of a sudden noticing that, gee, this thing has a lot of excess play in it. I'm like, oh man, this is not right. So I pulled it out, then compared it closely, and it was about 10 inches longer than the one I pulled out of there. So I started doing some research, and I found probably an 81-inch belt was the one I needed. But when I measured mine out, it measured out at 80 inches, although they say you're supposed to measure the outside diameter and subtract 2 inches. So then I was thoroughly confused. I thought, okay, Tractor Supply has probably got belts, and let's just go down there and see if we can compare one. So I went down there, and they had that cool belt measuring tool hanging there, and so I was able to put my belt on and put a new belt on there and figure out the difference because mine was wore out, and came up with the fact that the 81 was probably right. So we're back home, we'll put the new one in, and hopefully everything will be good to go. And I was telling the guy at the checkout that I really liked their belt tool, and he said, yeah, it's great. He said, but if it's wrong, just bring the belt back and we'll swap it. So that's awesome. Success, I think. So we've got the belt routed around in the back, and let me show you the front. All right, there it's routed around the pulleys, and then up here at the front, I ended up removing the clutch after all. I didn't have to. It just made it easier. And then if you can see, there's that piece of metal right there. That's got one bolt holding it. I had to loosen that in order to get the belt around. Well, after taking the clutch off, I really didn't have to, I guess, because this pulley here dropped down, and I was able to do it. But anyway, this is some kind of little guard that helps keep the belt on there. And so it was in the way. Anyway, so everything's all done under here except putting the clutch back on. It's just a single bolt. Had to use my impact to get it off. We'll use my impact, put it back on. And then wherever that rod went, that it out there. Have to put that back and then hook up the electrical for the clutch on the clutch. And then we'll be done underneath for now. Back on using the impact, and I also got the electrical hooked up, and then there's a little stop, metal stop I showed you before. I got that put back on. I even greased the front end, so that's all good to go. But while we're playing with belts, I also have this Mower deck belt, and hopefully this is the right one. And I was thinking I'd go ahead and replace this. I have the feeling that this belt's got a bad spot in it somewhere. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'd like to take it off and inspect it, and if I get that far, I might as well put a new one on there. If this one's not so bad, I could always keep it as an emergency spare. So the problem is going to be getting these plastic covers off, because as I recall, one of them or both of them, somebody put back together and used Phillips head screws instead of, I don't remember what was on there originally, like an Allen head or Torx, or maybe it was just a regular socket type head. Anyway, I'm going to have trouble getting one of them off, but I'll work at it and show you when I get there. It was a struggle, but I win. So I got the cover off that one right there. Just had 2 bolts, and of course they were a Phillips head, a big Phillips head. That was helpful. And then this one down here is the one that really fought me, and I got it off. It also had 2 holding it on there, and I needed to use a combination of a socket on the end of the screwdriver, and then in the end I just had to use a pair of vice grips on the head of the screw. I will try and find some different screws when I put it back together. Otherwise I'll use some anti-seize and won't put them in so tight or something. I don't know, we'll see. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and pull this belt off and clean the deck off and get the new belt on there, and you know what I'm doing. right, didn't mean to do that. Quick blade inspection while we're here. That's better. That look right? That look long enough? So these are the arms that go on the back of the mower. They go down to the deck and clip on there, and it's to adjust the height of the mower deck side to side. So if you look, they're adjusted the same right now, but look what has been done here. If you look at the adjuster nut, that one is where it ought to be. That one is about a 1/2 inch lower, and then they've got a clamp that they're using for a spacer. Why? Now my guess is because they probably couldn't get that to turn. So let's see if we can loose that up and fix this and do it the correct way. I mean, not that I'm all about doing things the correct way, but since I've got this apart, and something like this looks just too simple to fix. So let's do it. Yep, she's froze. Wow. Why is it froze? That's crazy. Well, at least we know why they did it, but Jesus, that thing shouldn't be that bad. I can spray with some penetrating oil, but I don't really have time to wait on it. That is weird. It doesn't look corroded or anything. Yeah, we can try a little bit of heat real quick. Yeah, there we go. A little too hot. Yeah, I think it's cross-threaded on there somehow, but how did that happen? Because it looks like it's getting more crooked the more I mess with it. Weird. So do we want to try and cut it off and replace it? I don't know. Well, I think I do. I don't know. Let me work on it. Change of plans. I went and stole the adjuster off of the parts mower. You know, I hate calling it a parts mower. I had plans on putting it back together and getting it running and mowing it sometime. I just keep stealing more parts off of it. Oh well, no biggie. So this is the new one, and I had to screw the adjuster up to match this one. And it was starting to get tight and up near the end. I'm not sure why they had it adjusted so far. So anyway, this one is adjusted at 1 1/4 inches. And then I backed this one off to 1 1/4 inches. It was at 1 3/8 inches. So we can go ahead and put those back on and get the mower deck installed. But first, a lunch break. Lunch is over, headed back to the shop. But man, look at the weather. It's kind of stormy looking out here. Wind's picked up. I thought I heard thunder a little bit ago, but probably not. But still, it's looking kind of stormy. Certainly not the nice sunny day that we started with today. Oh well, we're in the shop. Doesn't matter. Have one more little project before we get the deck back underneath. Do you remember this piece? It was shown several videos back. It connects between the frame of the mower and the back of the deck, and it's to keep the mower from swinging side to side. And it has a habit of coming out if you're mowing over rough terrain sometimes. I mean, if you have a nice lawn, it probably never comes loose. But if you've got kind of junky lawns like here or over at the rental, I've had them pop loose quite a bit. And I had no sooner put this one in and then it popped back out again. And I mentioned in the last video when I talked about it that if we have problems, what we're going to do is we're going to drill a hole and we're going to put a little cotter pin down through there, similar to what's going on at this end. So we're going to do that. First we need to straighten it. How's that look? Straight enough? Yep. Perfect. There's a piece installed. Can you see on the back side? I don't know, I can't tell. I can't hold the camera and see at the same time. That's it, I think. All installed. All the clips back in. So, doesn't look like the belt rubs anywhere it's not supposed to. So let's deck up. I think we're in pretty good shape. Okay, now we need to put these guards back on. Let me look and see if I can find some bolts to replace them. The good news is it's a 1/4 inch bolt, 20, I guess that's thread pitch, I don't know, 1/4 20. And I actually have perfect replacements in Phillips. Don't want to do that, but I do have some of these here. They're just way too long. So I'm going to screw a nut onto them. I'm going to cut them off shorter and then unthread the nut. That'll clean the thread up, and then we'll go with that. Sound good? I ended up screwing 2 nuts on each of the bolts, and we'll cut it off right at the end of that second nut. That'll give me 4 bolts. They're all the same length. Let me get the cutoff wheel. One down, 3 to go. Pretty sweet, right? All right, let me get those covers installed. So does that look a little sketch to you? Yeah, probably so. I need to jack it up high enough so I can get an impact underneath and get on the bolts that hold the blades. I'm going to go ahead and sharpen the blades while we're out here working on this. Last time I put the thing back together, I must have used impact to put the blades on, because my trick, usually I just reach up under there, put a rag on the blade, hold it, and then use a wrench on the bolt, and it comes right off. But these are too tight, so we're doing it this way. And yeah, it's a bit sketch. I got one of them undone, but it wasn't quite high enough to get the other two. So a few more 2x6s and we should be good to go. And that's a wrap. Mower's done, ready to go for tomorrow. Mowing over at the rental. So what do? We replaced the drive belt, we fixed the broken frame, replaced the belt for the mower blades, and we sharpened the blades. Anything else? We fixed that piece that keeps the mower deck from going side to side. And I think that's about it. So cool. Took longer than I thought to get everything done. I was hoping to have everything done yesterday and go mow today. But no biggie, we'll go mow tomorrow. So what's next? Alrighty, we've reached the end of another episode of Procrastination Garage. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I apologize for getting a little bit long, kind of like the last episode. Sometimes it's just hard to keep them where I want them to be. Anyway, it is what it is. Do me a favor, down in the comments, tell me about the things you're working on or the things you're procrastinating about. Love to hear about it. Remember, the number one goal of Procrastination Garage is to keep me motivated, to keep me working on projects either down in the shop, at the cabin, over at the rental, out in the yard, just doing whatever, and also getting up in the hills and playing. It's important to recreate. So remember, my name is Matt, and this is Procrastination Garage, and we'll see you real soon. Should be about a week. Thanks.